Now today's ceremonial first pitch on behalf of Cox Communications is Ryan Garlington. Ryan is the manager of the Cox Solutions store at 7th Street and Bell Road and was recently named a Jim Robbins Leadership Award recipient, named for the late Jim Robbins, who served as president and chief executive officer of Cox Communications for 20 years. Catching the first pitch is D-backs catcher Tuffy Gozawish. Great job, Ryan, and congratulations on receiving the Jim Robbins Leadership Award.
There was a phone system that CB offered and it pleased corporate. And you don't really hear your client, do you? Well, it goes like this, the IP Centrix, 0 up front, Cat 6 to every seat. So the baffled owner said, oh, let's do it. IP Centrix. Brian with Cox Business. Subbing for Ryan, your friend in the digital age.
A boss of mine used to say something all the time that has always stuck with me, and it's the one thing that whenever times get tough I always think on, and it propels me forward, and that's adversity causes some to break and some to break records. And he would say, what are you? And I'm a record breaker.
Glendale Chamber, good morning. Good morning. Let's try that over. Glendale Chamber, good morning. Good morning. Time to leave me. Time to, can I get a woo? Woo! I know he's been blowing the air out. You guys are excited this morning. So I'm very, very pleased and humbled to be able to present to you guys this morning and share with you a little bit more about what we do on the Cox Business side. So before I get deep into it, I just want to really quickly go over the agenda. Today we're going to talk about why Cox. We're going to talk about partnering with the AE, with your account executive. What is that like? What does that mean? We're going to talk about what's new. Yeah, we have some new things going on the Cox Business side. Actually, throughout all the organization, but we'll dive into Cox Business. We're going to talk about how to plan for the future. It's important to plan for the future as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, even as an individual contributor. If you have goals, we're going to talk about that from a technology standpoint. And then calculated decisions on speed, which brings me to what I want to do first. What I have here, I have a series of cards that have numbers on it. No particular order. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to sit it right here. And what I would like for you to do throughout the presentation, look through those numbers and see if there's anything suspicious with those numbers. And while you're looking through those numbers, I want you to think of a number between 1 and 60. It can be 60 if you want, but necessarily it can be in between. Between 1 and 60, we're going to come back to that later. So a number between 1 and 60, look through the cards, make sure it's not suspicious. It's okay if other people see it. I just want the cards to at least stay together and end up back at you. All right? So why Cox? Why Cox? Whether you're self-employed or you're a large enterprise organization, Cox Business has customized solutions that will fit your need. And that's why we're going to get into why working with the account executive. Award-winning customer service. Cox is one of the reasons why I moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Arizona to work for this company. And I did so without reload. I say that because I was offered a job with Comcast. And I applied out here, and the lady that I applied with, she called me. I was with my kids, everything. I was back in Atlanta, and she was like, hey, Ryan, I got an opening. Do you want to move back to Arizona? And I was only supposed to be here temporarily with this vacation company. I'll share that with you guys. But I got out of the vacation industry because I didn't believe in the product. And so Cox was a company that I believed in. And so I was like, you know what, I'll move back to Arizona and go and work for this company because it was that belief in how they treated their employees. $25 billion reinvested in infrastructure. Oh, I mean, I don't know what $25 billion necessarily would do from an infrastructure standpoint. I'm not an engineer, but that sounds like a lot of money to me. Will you guys agree? Absolutely. All right, and 24/7 dedicated local support. This is huge because I've been part of the support. And it's local. You know, a lot of times you work with individuals that maybe you went to church with, or you went to go to the same grocery store and they're the same individual. Oh, you're the guy that works at the Cox store. Or so you speak to someone on the phone and they're local support. So these are some of the reasons why a lot of people choose to go with Cox. So what's an account executive? You guys are business owners. You guys have a lot of things on your plate, am I right? Absolutely. A lot of whirlwind. And it's very difficult sometimes to predict week on week on week what your week is going to be like. As much as you try, trust me, I try every week to say, you know what? On Friday, I'm going to get this amount of rest. I'm going to stop working at this time. My boss over there knows. He sees me. I very rarely stop working the time that I anticipate. So, why is it important for you as a business owner to work with an account executive? Well, you want to build trust. I'm old school when it comes to doing business. It's hard for me to talk to somebody over the phone and feel like I'm trusting you. Just tell you that right now. How many people are like that? Yeah. If I can't see that eyes, or kind of get a feel of your body language, shake the hand, do a little shake and say, is this really what, you just told me? Is that what's going to happen? When I get that bill, is everything you told me, is that what's going to happen? And it's hard to build that trust. So what an account executive does is we build a relationship with the individual. We come, or at least me, I come to the business, I get to know how you operate, so that way we can build trust. Whether or not we're talking about Cox services, or we're talking about what you did that weekend, or we're talking about what you're going to do next weekend, I'm there to have a conversation. Now, I will often suggest, hey, do your due diligence. This is what we're talking about, but at the same time, see what else is out there in the industry. Compare, hold me accountable. Because next I'm going to go through the discovery process. And this is why it's important to build the trust. So the discovery process for me is a series of questions that I will ask so that I can offer solutions that are really based upon how you're going to operate as a business owner, or as a business, or as an entity, or as a nonprofit. It's very difficult because buyers are liars all day long. Anybody that's in sales, we know that. And I don't like to look at myself as a sales agent. So what I like to do is just come in, get to really know the operation so that I can, throughout the discovery say, you know what, based upon everything that you shared with me, this is my professional recommendation. But I also hold you to hold me accountable. Challenge this. Do your due diligence. And then my diagnosis. We all have different types of diagnosis. For me, it's to say, okay, what's our ultimate goal? And for most businesses, our ultimate goal is to be profitable, right? It's a bottom line. For charities, it may have to do that profit may be counted in the amount of lives touched, correct? But in the amount of lives touched, efficiency still matters, correct? So whether it's lives touched or whether it's the bottom line of dollars, your profit, the diagnosis is supposed to be tailored to that goal. All right? We're all professionals at something. And I always try to present this because often I talk to owners and I walk into the office and they're moving 5, 10 things off their desk. And then I come in and I'm like, hey, well, based upon what we talked about, I would suggest 100 megabytes of internet. If I'm making a suggestion, it's because I've studied and I've learned that, this is what's best. This is what I do day in and day out. So back to what I was saying before, the building the trust part is important because by the time I make the diagnosis, I'm expecting for you on your end to trust the professional. And if we're in the same vertical, hey, we're going to hold each other accountable. I talk with a lot of IT vendors that I partner with, and we'll share best practices, we'll share methodology on best ways to solve problems. But ultimately, what is our profession? So for me, it's telecommunications. I've been in telecommunications as a whole for 20 years. Started off with Verizon Wireless. I've worked for T-Mobile, and I've worked in their Verizon's business department, and now I'm here for Cox. I'm celebrating the decade this year. So it's very, very exciting. Yes, feel free to be here. So what I'd like to do is take out the guesswork. Back to what we were saying before, everyone's very, very busy as a business owner, so let's take out the guesswork. How about what's new? Did you think of your number yet? We're going to come back to it. I just want to make sure you thought of the number. Okay, tell somebody else the number. Just make sure I don't know so that once we come back to that, we'll know. All right, so what's new? Well, you guys remember that logo? Yeah, you see it on the front of that bag. That's why I don't have any banners right now. Because that logo is the old and we ushered in the new. All right, so that's why you're seeing that logo, both residential and Cox Business. We've rebranded ourselves from a logo standpoint. I really, really like the new logo, and it looks awesome on our golf shirts, especially. So, anybody's going to be at
first things first.
So, all right, so what's new? SD-WAN. Who's heard that term before? SD-WAN. Software-defined wide area network. What is that? Because I talk to some business owners, I'm like, oh, are you doing anything in the cloud? I mean, what is the cloud? Is the cloud really just throwing, because it sounds scary to me. When I first heard it, I was like, I don't want my information all in the cloud. You know, no, where does that go? Somebody can get the cloud. I'm like, no, I can't see it. I can't touch it. Then I don't want my information there. Does anybody feel that way? But what the cloud is, actually, it's taking your on-premise information, your server, which is on-premise. A lot of times we think holding things close is the best way to protect that. And from a data standpoint, that's the quickest way to be compromised. Why is that? Because hackers, well, first of all, if it's on-premise, if it's on your space, if there's a flood, if there's a fire, if there's anything that happens to your business and you lose that information, if you ask yourself, oh, if I lose all this information, does that put me out of business? The question is yes. You got to get that information, have a backup. And backing it up every week or once a night, trust me, is not the method to doing that. Most enterprises have already gone to the cloud. So now it's become so important for small and medium-sized businesses to think the same, especially when your equipment gets outdated. Now we're investing CapEx expense into on-premise equipment that now outdates itself. So what is the cloud? The cloud is a company that specializes in data infrastructure and redundancy. So what they do is they build cloud locations or data house infrastructures all around the world, the globe, in various different places. And what they do is they repeat your information. But it's encrypted in such a manner that even the best hackers cannot hack into that information. But more importantly, it's protected. Okay? Managed Wi-Fi. Does anybody allow their clients to use Wi-Fi when they come to your location? Yeah. And you ever think about or wonder, you know what? I might not do it because it may compromise. A lot of times you go to some businesses, they want to offer it, but they don't because of the potential liability. And I completely understand that. Cox now offers a fully managed Wi-Fi service that gives you a lot of visibility into how the data is being used. Ability to be able to do things like restrict certain websites. We don't want anybody getting the big O at your place. Yeah, I had to play that. You guys play that. I was back there thinking, man, I gotta get up there and the company's name is Cox, and all talking about stuff. I was sweating from that topic alone. Now that I got that out, I can loosen up a bit. All right. MobBlock. Okay, MobBlock is the service that we now offer with all internet service. You can ask to have it removed, but I definitely suggest you keep it on there. It basically stops some of those unwanted points and clicks onto things that can compromise your whole network, especially when you have employees that are utilizing your data bandwidth. Okay, so IP-Centrics. IP-Centrics, you heard me sing about, is our phone service. It's a fully hosted and fully managed phone system, but what's new about it is we now have teleworker stations. All that means is say that you have a brick and mortar facing location, but yet you have people that are working remotely. You can give them the ability to be able to have a phone that ties into your phone system at your location, and all they need is internet. Very cool. Then you can transfer calls to them. They can transfer calls to you. Each person, either at the physical location or at home, will get a unified communications app on their cell phone, so that they can also, when they go mobile, they can hide their cell phone number, so they can still have all the same functions they would have if they were sitting right at their desk phone. It's very awesome. Schedule a one-on-one with me to get more information. And then rapid scale. You're going to see this as we start branding a little bit more. So Rapid Scale is a new Cox Business owned company that offers a particular suite of cloud services and internet as things. How do we say that, Vernon? Internet of Things?
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. You're going to hear that term quite often, desktop as a service, or what's another one, Vernon?
Disaster recovery as a service.
Disaster recovery as a service. So when you start hearing these terms, because they'll write them up and it's to confuse you, at least to me, when you put DAAS, D-A-A-S, I'm like, what is that? It sounds like I needed, some type of degree to understand. All it is desktop as a service. So what I'm saying is that if you have 5 different desktops and you want them all to have the same applications on each one of the desktops, then I'm going to basically copy this image into the cloud, so that I say, when you log onto there, boom, you're going to have this information the same as here. Very simple. All right, so let's move on. Proactive versus reactive. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Cyber attacks. We all know about cyber attacks. So I'm going to click through some of these statistics, but what I want to do is pull up what's some of the things that they're talking about from 2019, because it's increasing in importance. This is from 2000. Where am I reading? This is CNBC. Pulled it up last night. So 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses. A lot of times we think if it hasn't happened to me, then it can't happen to me, or it's not going to happen. But if you wait until you're reactive, let's see how much it costs. These incidents cost on average for small and medium-sized businesses $200,000. Now, why is it so much? Because if you compromise somebody's data, meaning like their addresses, their phone numbers, their credit card information, and I'll hear from a lot of times from customers, oh, well, I'm not storing any of that information here. Well, cyber attackers, they've gotten really creative. They have devices that they can put on your POS machines, or ways that they can come in there to be able to capture that information from sitting outside. So I'm not here to build up the fear. It's a real aspect. So the question is, do you want to wait until something happens, which eventually a lot of times it will, or do you want to be proactive? And the reason why I say that is because it's difficult to detect them. A lot of times, if you're compromised, you don't know you're compromised until either the authorities are reaching out to you, or a bank institution is reaching out to you. A lot of times we detect it and it's too late. So if you have an IT vendor and you're calling and say, hey, I pay you every month, and are you watching, my infrastructure? Are you looking at my data transmission? A lot of times that monitoring is taking place when something happens, or when they notice a ping. It's not 24/7. And so that's something that Cox has added as a benefit. However, again, I just want to inform you guys on why to be conscious of this. And then, how do we protect against, proactively fight against cyber attacks? So everything is about what is put in place. A firewall is the best place to start. But also doing things like being conscious of, what is on your POS machine. So let's even say you're not storing the data. Always check your system, check your machines. Be on the lookout, because if somebody's wanting to compromise your infrastructure, they're not going to look like maybe the typical person. They're walking in. There'll probably be a customer that comes in there all the time and that you speak to, and they just real casually, because they're very, very good at it. And sometimes the emails that we receive, I've seen a few that I was like, oh man, that looks like one that I got from another department within Cox. You go to click on it. So we train on this constantly. So instead of always having to know what, I need to always be conscious, put things in place to also help with that next level of protection. So it brings me to our last slide. How much speed do I need? Speed really does matter, doesn't it? Or does it not? I think, have you ever seen anybody using slower internet? Yeah. Have you ever tried to get something done that was, time sensitive with slow internet? Yes. Have you ever tried? So, residential versus commercial. This is important because I hear this all the time. I'll have somebody come in, I'll get to the office, and we'll talk about how many computers they have and everything they're using the internet for, and they'll say, well, at home I have a gig. And well, give me a gig. And then I tell them the price for a gig at a commercial location. They go, oh, no, hold on. A gig at a commercial location is not the same as a gig at your residential location. Everybody know that? Yeah, it's okay. Here's why. Because at your home location, the coax that goes into one pedestal is then being split off to feed a certain amount of, let's just say, X 4 or 5 homes. During the busier times of the day, data is basically lanes of traffic that will allow for a certain amount of information to pass either out or come back in, which out is going to be your download, and then bringing things in, or things going out is your upload, bringing things in is your download. I always have to stop and think, okay, because I get them confused. But all they are lanes of highway to be able to send data. So, on the residential side, it's split off. On the commercial side, we're giving a dedicated connection to a commercial location, and even if you're in a suite, when that split is off, then we're amping it up with a certain amount of repeaters and a certain amount of energy, basically, to guarantee that the level speed we're giving you is what you're going to get and have operation at all times. It's not going to fluctuate up and down in the commercial location. It's not used for entertainment, most likely. I mean, even if it's an entertainment location like Dave & Buster's, it's still being used to generate revenue. So, residential is not the same as commercial. Upload versus download. So, what we were just talking about, businesses use more upload than usually you'll use at home. Why is that? Anybody can tell me why you use more upload speed?
Sending more data back to the servers?
Yes, absolutely. We're sending more information into the servers. We're sending more information into the cloud. So if you're saying, say take a medical office, for example, and they have patient files, a lot of times they're uploading that information into the cloud. They usually have some type of application that they're using, and then it's going into the cloud. So that is the upload speed. So why fiber? What's the big deal with fiber? Sometimes we want things because it sounds cool, or we know that the office that down the hallway they got fiber, so oh man, we got fiber down there. I'm gonna give me fiber. Why do we need fiber? Can anybody tell me the difference between fiber and coax service? Speed. Well, what particularly?
Light.
What was that?
Speed of light.
Speed of light. It is really, really fast. How about, let's go back to that download and upload speed. Their speeds are symmetrical. So what I mean is, on the coax service, the most upload speed I can give you is 35 megabytes. That is the max. On fiber, if you have 100 megabytes download, you're going to have 100 megabytes upload. If you have 200 megabytes download, you're going to have 200 megabytes upload. That is not the same for fiber residential. So please don't confuse that. Fiber to the home residential is different. Their upload speed is still maxed out, I believe, at 35. But for a business, your downloading and upload speeds are symmetrical. So we're going to go back to here. So why does bandwidth matter? Why does it matter? So if you were to tell me that, you know what, Ryan, in order for me to service my customers, I need for my employees to be able to efficiently process X amount of orders. However those orders are processed, but the internet is what's used to process those orders. And I'll say, okay, well, how many employees are you using? Three employees, for example. Well, how many computers? Well, they're sharing 2 computers. I have one working this time and this one working this time. What else are you running on that bill? All the questions that I'm asking is to help determine what might be the best recommendation for the amount of bandwidth. And generally what I'll do is I'll professionally recommend just one step below if I know for a fact that price is a factor. Why is that? Because once we start off there, it's easier for us to determine if we need faster, right? But if I start you off at a gig, we wouldn't have known if 500 megabytes would have worked. Everybody understand? Because you'll talk to some guys, they'll sell you the gig all day long. But this is why it's important to build that relationship with your account executive. But if you're not being honest, then I'm having a guess. So do you have your number?
Yes.
All right, so let's try this out. Is your number on that sheet?
No.
Is your number on that sheet?
No.
How about this one? Did she pick a number?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We have one. How about this sheet?
Yes.
Yes. How about this sheet?
Yes.
You know the card?
How about that sheet?
Yes.
Okay, so her number is on 4 out of the 6 cards. So let me take a look at it for a second. All right, so I want you to look at those 4 cards and just because I already know what your number is, but I want you to kind of make sure that you don't think that there's any logical way I would guess it. Because most people say, well, then my number's on each one of the cards.
Yeah.
There's multiple numbers that are on each one of the cards. Yeah, so that's why I haven't studied them for some time. All right, so why does bandwidth matter? Bandwidth is about our efficiency. So let's take the guesswork out. So I'm asking the discovery question so I can make not a guess where I'm like, you know what, this is it. I'm making an educated guess. And what I'll say is that your number is 30. Is that correct? Everybody give a clap round of applause. So that is what takes the guesswork out. So
right here, folks.
So we're going to go to questions, but before I go to questions, there's somebody in here that has something special underneath their seat. Somebody in here has something special underneath their seat.
Gum?
While you guys are looking, what I brought for everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me questions, but I brought everyone, please try and grab one out of the bag. I brought 60 of them, but they're desktop chargers. So you plug them in, and if your phone is a wireless charger, I brought one for everyone from Cox Business. So who has something special? Shane has $100. Right there, $100. Piece of card. I know we're at the end of time, so any questions? I'll maybe take 1 or 2 questions. I know we're at the end of time. Yes.
How often does Cox revisit your line and ground and upgrade?
As far as the infrastructure, it depends on basically the saturation of that node. And what I mean is there's a tie point in our infrastructure that they're constantly looking at the noise and the balances. Now, I will tell you, I'm not an engineer, so that is a question for one, but I can get back to you on the frequency. But I do know if we have a certain amount of complaints in that area, that's when they'll dispatch the engineers, our NetOps team. I know quite a few of those guys, and they're some smart dudes. So it kind of depends on the complaints. Yes, sir.
I complained about it. They came out and dug my stuff up and fixed it.
Awesome. Anybody have maybe something they want to share, or anybody's worked with me before would like to share something?
Yeah, I just want to mention, as a business owner, one thing you don't have time to is worry about if your internet is working or not. So one of their competitors, I was using that, I didn't know any better, and I had a problem, and I did call them, and they routed my call to Honduras, customer service. And I said, where am I calling? They said Honduras. And they asked me for my tax ID number. Not my tax ID, but a portion of it for security. And when they did that, I said, I'm done with this company. I wrote a letter to that company. They never responded. I went to Cox. I've never had a problem. I absolutely love them.
Last I'll say, and I'll hand this over to Gary, is that there are things that come up. I do have customers that have had to fight through challenges. It's technology. But as an account executive, what I do is I try to take a lot of the time that will be spent investigating, troubleshooting, or getting pointed in the wrong direction. I take some of that guesswork out. So I may not be able to solve every problem, but I can be the liaison in between. So don't just come to me if you're saying about if you need something as far as new service. If you have any type of question, if anything else, I can get you pointed in the right direction. So Ryan with Cox Business, customized commercial solutions.